Good morning, everybody. We are here on Facebook Live, figuring out technology here at the Parents Estate Planning Law Firm. But we know that this is a question we want to share with you, so we're going to try this again. We are in Acton, Massachusetts, again at the Parents Estate Planning Law Firm with our one and only David Feeks, who is here today to answer just one of the many of the most commonly asked questions here at the firm. So David, so glad you're here.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to be here. The most common question we get in the office is, at least generally, what are the kinds of things that I need to think about or the kinds of documents I need to have in place if I'm the parent of young children? And really the way the question is often framed when people first call the office is really not so much a question but a statement, and that is usually, I need a will, can you help me? And our answer is, most likely you're going to need more than a will, especially if you're the parent of young kids. But people hear about wills, so they tend to call up and ask specifically about that. But here's what we found in working with families with young kids for years and years and years. And that is that there is probably about 5 different documents that most families with young children really need to have in place to make sure that their kids and their assets are well protected and well cared for. The very first thing that every parent of a young child needs is what we call a kids protection plan. And that involves naming long-term guardians for your children, the people that you know and trust to care for and love and raise your kids, if you're not there to raise them to adults yourself, but also short-term guardians. And this is where our firm is a little bit different, is that we help parents to identify and name short-term guardians. Because here's the thing, your long-term guardians might not always be immediately available to your kids if something were to happen to you. If you go out on a Saturday night and your kids are home with a babysitter and something happens to you on the way home, your long-term guardians might not be immediately available to your kids. So you want to make sure that there are people who are close by to where you live who can come and be with your kids and take care of them until your long-term guardians can arrive and take over your kids' care. And we call those people short-term guardians or first responders. And as part of our kids protection plan in our office, all of our clients will have named short-term guardians as well. So there's always people close by who can come over and take care of your kids. You want to make sure all of that is documented legally. It's not something you can write on a napkin or a scrap of paper, and you have to have more than just the conversations with these people. But also as part of our kids protection plan, we create what we call caregiver or babysitter instructions, so that if you do go out on a Saturday night and your kids are home with a babysitter, your babysitter would know exactly what to do if there was an emergency. They would know who to call. They would know who your first responders are, who those short-term guardians are. And then the other thing that we create as part of our kids protection plan for all of our clients is what we call a family emergency ID card. And this is what it looks like, and this is mine because I carry this around because I still have a 15-year-old and I practice what I preach. But every one of our clients has this family emergency ID card in their purse or wallet. It identifies who their short-term guardians are, so if you're ever in an accident, somebody can pull out that card and know you have young kids at home and can be contacting those people who can go right over to your house and take care of your kids. So that's really the most important thing for parents with young kids, is to take care of that guardianship piece. The second most important thing is to have a will. Because if you were to die, a will is where you name long-term guardians for your kids. So you want to make sure you have a will. And for a lot of families, that's the way you identify who to whom and how you want your assets to pass. For some families, a will isn't enough in terms of passing assets. Some people need what we call a revocable living trust. A trust is a separate document that you create that says who gets your assets, when they get those assets, and under what circumstances. The beauty of a trust is, number one, it stays very private. A will gets filed with a court and it's public. And some families with young kids don't want all that information to be made public. So a trust would keep all of that information private. No one sees it, no one knows who's getting your assets, no one knows what your assets are. It helps you, a trust also helps you to avoid the entire probate process, which can be a long, expensive, drawn-out, and cumbersome process. And especially when you have young kids, you might not want your family to go through that long, drawn-out court process. A trust can help you to save on estate taxes. And for a lot of families, that's not a big issue, but especially for our clients here in Massachusetts, that can be a really big issue because we have a pretty low estate tax threshold in Massachusetts. And then the other thing a trust can help you to do is to protect the assets that you leave for your kids. You can set it up so it's protected from their future creditors, from a lawsuit that may be brought against them in the future. If somewhere down the line they get married and divorced, you can protect the money so that it can't be taken away from a future divorcing spouse. So that's a trust. And then the last two documents we always recommend have to do not so much with answering the question, what happens if I die, but answering the question, what happens if I don't die? What happens if I become disabled? And so everybody wants to make sure that they have a healthcare proxy in place or a healthcare directive that identifies who would make healthcare decisions for you if you ever became disabled and couldn't make those decisions for yourself. So in Massachusetts, that's called a healthcare proxy. In other states, it's called a healthcare directive or a healthcare power of attorney, but the document is substantially the same. You want to make sure that there's special language in that document that says, not only can these people make the decisions for me, but they can get access to all of my private medical records. What we call a HIPAA waiver or HIPAA authorization. So very important that that authorization language is in your healthcare directive. And then the last and the fifth document that everybody should have, every adult should have, is a durable power of attorney. And that's basically a document that says if I become incapacitated, here's who can make legal or financial decisions for me. Here's who can access my bank accounts. Here's who can go and get my mail. Here's who can make decisions about my IRA and my 401k. Here's who can sign a deed on my behalf if I'm incapacitated and my house needs to be sold. So those are the five broad categories of documents. Kids protection plan if you've got young kids, a will, a revocable trust if you want to keep everything private and make things as easy as possible for your family, a healthcare proxy, and a durable power of attorney. And one more note on the healthcare proxy and the durable power of attorney. For those of you who might be watching who have adult children, maybe your kids just turned 18, maybe they're going off to college in the fall. I have a college freshman who's just about to come home in 2 weeks, and every 18-year-old child needs to have their own documents in place. At the bare minimum, they need to have a healthcare proxy, they need to have a HIPAA waiver or HIPAA authorization, and they need to have a durable power of attorney. Because here's the thing, when your kids turn 18, parents, you can't make decisions for them anymore. You don't have automatic access to their medical records anymore. And when they go off to school, if they're in an accident, you might not be able to make decisions for them or even get medical information about their care. So you want to make absolutely sure before your 18-year-old, your future college freshman, goes off to college that they get those documents in place. For our clients in the office, we have what we call our 18 plus program where we let our clients know when their kids are about to turn 18, it's time for them to come in and get those documents set up for those 18-year-olds. So now that we're heading to college graduation, to high school graduation season, I wanted to point that out as well because that's something that's going to be going on a lot in our office over the next 3 or 4 months.
So David, we have someone asking, do you have to be a client to have their children who is about to be 18 or is 18 come in and do that paperwork?
You don't have to be an existing client in our office. We do a lot of that work for non-clients. Not surprisingly, a lot of the people who come in to get their kids' documents put together find out that they don't have an airtight plan in place for themselves and want to get that going. And so we tend to see a lot of those people turn into clients, but certainly you don't have to be a client. If that's something you're concerned about, you can just contact our office and we'd be happy to sit down and talk with you and get something in place for your 18-year-old or your soon-to-be 18-year-old.
Great. Okay, so we want to thank everybody. We want to thank you, David, for answering one of our most commonly asked questions here at the firm. We want to thank all of our viewers today who were here live. Those that are possibly watching the replay, feel free to put any questions you might have for David or the Parents Estate Planning Law Firm in the comments, and we'll get to them in one of our future broadcasts. Thanks, everybody, for being with us today.
Bye-bye, everybody.